Recording.
Alright, so welcome to the Retzone podcast, and today we're going to be talking about retro modding. So we're going to be talking about doing things like putting optical drive replacements, things like EverDrives. Basically, what kind of mods can you do to your old systems? Your old original NES, your Super Nintendo, well, whatever. I'm Chris. I'm also joined by Chris and Ramon.
Hello. Hello.
And a bunch of dogs.
And our dogs.
Who let the dogs out?
Yeah, we got two out of the way without that. But oh. All right, so talking about modding old consoles. So, I don't know. I guess start with like Nintendo. What kind of mods you can do? I know big ones right now are doing things like doing like RGB out because your original consoles didn't have RGB, so they're actually taking out your PPU and putting in new ones in between it to actually output RGB signals for it. I think there's things like the HDMI NES you can do as well. So you just get like HDMI signal right out of your NES.
Yes.
I've actually looked into that one. That's actually a bit of a difficult mod to do because there's lots of soldering.
Depends on what you want to do. If you want to do the PPU thing, like if you want to get one of those Play Choice PPUs.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest
stuff like
thing,
that.
The biggest thing is a lot of the mods like that. It's a lot of soldering. You gotta kind of know what you're doing. You don't want to just make a mess of it. People will do it for you. You pay some money and you buy the chip and they'll kind of take care of it for you. But there's a bunch of things you can do like that. There's also cheap mods you can do, like even like Blinking Light Win.
That's one I would like to do, actually.
Because, the pins on like the original VCR NES, as we call it, is not exactly reliable.
That NES tin chip is such a pain in the ass.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's things like that. That's just a cheap thing that anybody can kind of do. You just take out the one board, you put in a new one. No big deal. And it's kind of nice. Gives you a little bit more life out of your NES, a little bit more, less finicky with it.
Especially if you use original cards still. I mean, if you use an EverDrive with it, then as long as it works once, it's fine.
Yeah, as long as you can read it once, and it doesn't really matter beyond that. I don't know if there's really for Super Nintendo. What kind of mods are they even for Super Nintendo?
I'm guessing.
I can't think of any off the top of my head. Nobody seems to really mod them.
Yeah, I don't even know what you put in it. Like maybe it'd be like an HDMI mod or something like that.
Not really. When you consider the Super Nintendo as RGB out,
Yeah.
it's kind of moot.
Like I know, it always seems like there's just certain consoles that there's everybody mods. So there's things like for your NES, I think you do like stereo mods and stuff like that too. Because
I think there is one for the Super Nintendo, but it has to be the Super Nintendo Mini because it doesn't do RGB out.
Oh, okay.
So that one makes sense because the Super Nintendo Mini, as small as it is, they removed like the RGB out of that.
Right.
So there's like a mod that puts it back in.
Right. Yeah, I mean most mods are. It really seems like most mods just comes down to trying to do things like upgrading your video. I think that's really the big mods that are out for every console.
Right.
Yeah, the one mod I did is for an older console called the ColecoVision. I did a composite mod for it because it's normally only RF out. So.
Yeah. You're trying to get the better signal. I mean, you're just trying to get better video signals out of there to kind of make it look a bit nicer.
It looks pretty good, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, you can composite mod on Atari, you can composite mod on Intellivision because they are RF out only.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of like what other consoles really have mods that people will do to it. Like I know Nintendo is a big one. That a lot of
N64 is a big thing because the multi-out on that thing does not do RGB out from the beginning.
The N64's got RGB mods for it.
I mean, you got like Ultra HDMI for N64, but that's a little bit more of a complicated mod.
There seems to be more mods for GameCube.
Oh, there's a lot for GameCube, especially when you consider the component cables for GameCube are still up there.
Yeah. I mean, there's alternatives to that at least, where you got the Eon, I think it is.
Yeah, the GC HD Mark II right now.
Yeah.
Though that's kind of interesting because you can actually have HDMI out and then you still got component out, so you can do dual outputs.
Right.
Oh, that's nice.
which, you can actually use Wii component cables now if you have that thing,
Yeah.
which is nice.
Oh, that's nice.
And you got things like the Corby, that's basically the same thing, but it's just HDMI out. There's no component cable or anything. One thing I should mention about the Mark II is that you can actually get like digital audio out of it. It's like Toslink out, which is like if you care about the audio, then that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So
Yeah, I mean, realistically, what it boils down to is most mods are pretty much just trying to get the best that you can get from your console, getting that out. Better video, better sound, better connections, stuff like that. That's pretty much the big part of what you're getting out of those mods.
I think the other popular mods right now are the optical drive replacements.
or emulators as they call it, ODEs.
Yeah, the optical drive emulators. So there's things I know for like Dreamcast has got. So a lot of ones. Obviously, the problem with having your Dreamcast, your Sega CDs, your Saturns, even like Philips CDI, PlayStation, stuff like that, is that these lasers have a tendency to die. So instead of replacing your laser all the time, what people are actually doing nowadays, they actually just put optical drive emulators that it's like little flash cards, like little SD cards that you just put in there, and it basically just works to make an emulator of your CD drive. So it just reads off an SD card as opposed to reading a CD, and it pretends to be, oh, I booted this game, Final Fantasy. And
The other thing it combats is bitrot on discs. Optical media does have a...
There's a lifespan on it. Like,
yeah, that's always been my big thing with the CD-based media, is that it's kind of like, you don't know when it's going to happen, but it's a known issue that eventually all CDs are going to just kind of die.
Yeah,
Some games are worse than others.
I have burned discs from 20 years ago that don't read anymore.
Yeah. I know some games are worse for that than other ones. Like I know, I think it's Metal Gear Solid for GameCube. That's really bad for that. It's really a known issue that they...
There was a problem where the ink they were using to print on top of the CDs was actually eating through the discs.
Yeah.
disc rot. It's a real thing.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's unfortunate, but...
And unfortunately, at this point, we'll probably get some carts that will outlast the CDs.
Yeah, I mean, that's the big thing for me with cart based is just like, you know what, carts are gonna last longer than I will, so don't have to worry about those ever dying necessarily.
So it just makes sense for these CD-based consoles to have like an optical drive emulator so that they can actually last a whole lot longer than, as long as the chips still work.
I was actually sort of surprised when the PS5 and the Series X came out, and they were still optical based. I thought maybe that flash media was so cheap to make now that we go back to cartridge based stuff.
Yeah.
They did make the digital versions, but that's still just an option.
Yeah. Well, I think digital media. I think the DVDs and stuff like that now they'll last a lot longer, but.
Yeah, I haven't seen an original Xbox or 360 game go bad yet.
Yeah.
Unless it's been abused, of course. But
Yeah, well, get scratched, whatever else.
Yeah.
But I mean, for most of your disc-based platforms now, they do have the ODEs, which are kind of nice. And it works almost, I guess, like an EverDrive, where you're just instead of putting in your EverDrive and playing the game, you're just putting in an SD card and it's just emulating your.
Especially for rarer consoles, say like the Saturn, like it would be really hard to find a laser for Saturn.
And the games to go with it can be quite expensive as well. So if you just wanted to play the game, well,
yeah, that's
good luck trying to find it down.
That's cost prohibitive as well, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, other option, I guess it's kind of modding, is things like the EverDrives. You can have, I think pretty much every console now has got an EverDrive.
Yes.
Mostly.
There's I think there's Game Boy ones now.
Yes, there's Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance.
I think most of the cartridge based are all.
Yeah,
EverDrive.
I think anything that's got cartridge based has got. You can buy EverDrives. So for anybody who doesn't know, basically an EverDrive just works as like a
multi-cart. If you remember back in the day, you can buy a carts like a multi-cart, like a pirate multi-cart. It basically works like that, except it's your own ROMs. You can do whatever you want with it.
Yeah, it just loads the game into a multi-cart, and then the console sees it as that game being inserted in, and it plays the game. So it plays like an original game would. It's a nice alternative for if you're
We do have a legacy video on the channel where we go over Ramon's EverDrive.
Yeah, that was like
Yeah.
the N8, I think, for the original VCR model NES.
NES, yeah.
And that worked well enough. Yeah, I even tried something like Famicom games on it, though your mileage may vary depending on the game.
Because of the audio chip, right?
Exactly.
It doesn't know how to
Yeah.
interpret some of the audio, like in Castlevania 3, or
Yeah.
because the Famicom had that extra sound channel.
Right, and then
Alright.
ever since I did get like in possession of Sega Genesis EverDrive, and that works pretty well. Considering if you remember with the Sega consoles, especially with the Genesis, you got like the Sega CD, then you got the Sega 32X, and then you're probably wondering, okay, how am I supposed to play all these games if, let's say, some of the 32X games are just unobtainable?
Yeah.
So you got like a nice option like that. Even the Genesis EverDrive, you can play like Sega Master System games on it. So that's a bonus as well if
Yeah.
you don't want to
Yeah.
bother with that console.
I think
Yeah.
I think the Genesis EverDrive is on my radar because I have a 32X, but I don't have any games for it.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to find games for that one.
I hope it works. I bought it like months ago, but I've never been able to use it.
Yeah.
Right, that's like, I mean, especially with the Sega consoles, it's like, yeah, you want to get that Sega Tower of Power running.
Yeah, I've never
Yeah.
actually seen lately, I haven't seen any 32 games for sale anywhere.
I think the most common one I can see most of the time is like Doom for the 32X.
See,
Yeah.
that's the last one I'd want, to be
Doom or
honest.
like Virtua Fighter, I see that a lot.
I,
Oh,
I
yeah.
wouldn't mind VR Racing or the Star Wars game.
Or maybe even like Knuckles Chaotix, because that's technically,
Knuckles Chaotix is harder to find.
it's a little more hard to find out.
That's not a CD one, is it? It's
No, no,
just-
it's
No,
for-
no,
that's
32X
for
exclusive.
32X. So, but yeah, I mean, anyway, for modding your consoles, like I said, for the most part, what you're doing is you're just trying to get better video out of it, trying to get better sound out of it, trying to just make it work a little bit better than the original hardware really did, or things like doing, EverDrives,
You
the
could run,
ODs for your optical drives.
you're getting to like, around the original Xbox, and that had a lot of mods.
Yeah.
Oh god.
Like, you got things like and I hate to say it, like if you were in the PAL territories and you had an original Xbox, you couldn't even do like 720p or 1080i on it.
Yeah, well, I guess, with kind of more recent, I shouldn't even say more recent consoles, but, things like original Xbox or like PS2, stuff like that, you start to, or like N64, right? Where you're doing like region modding. So, for the N64, basically the cartridges were cut different, and all it is you could buy like a Japanese one and like file down parts of it to actually make English carts go into the console, because it'll play both, because it was actually not region locked, they just had like keyed basically.
Yeah, the Super Famicom and the SNES was the same way.
Yeah.
I
So I mean,
have
so it's like trying to unlock regions for it. PlayStation 2, I don't think was region locked, was it?
I think it was region like that. NTSC, UC,
Well, it's
then
the
PAL.
Yeah, because I guess PAL
I think
couldn't
it was
play.
region locked, yeah.
Yeah, couldn't
It
play
was.
PAL. Couldn't play PAL games, so you just get the black and white.
I think PS3 and up isn't region locked because
PS3 isn't, except for like there's a handful of games that
Yes.
are region locked.
It's like
they gave it up to the developers to be like, well, do you want to region lock it or not? And
like I mentioned in a different podcast, I have EDF5, but I have the Hong Kong version because it wasn't sold as a physical and it works fine in my North American PS4. So
Yeah, so I think the only last major console that ever had region locking is, I think, the Wii U. And I think that was the last one that really had that region locking going on. The rest were like, any modern console now doesn't really have region
yeah, I
locking.
mean, any console nowadays won't have any kind of region locking on
even
it
the
at all.
360 didn't have region locking.
360 did.
Okay.
It did.
But I think the Wii U came out after the 360.
And that still had
Yes.
region locking.
Yeah.
And now anything, the Switch doesn't have it, the PS5 doesn't have it.
Yeah, I mean it's more global now. Those things don't really have region
With-
locked anymore.
Yeah, and I don't think it's ever coming back in a way unless you want to really like piss people off, I guess.
I mean, it's funny, I guess, talking about console mods. It's kind of like the old school console mods where you had like
Yeah.
power based converter, and your 32X is kind of like it's kind of like a console mod. It's like an add-on for your console. It's just a bit bulkier.
Well, I do have hands-on experience with like PS1, the flash card, PSIO, which is it does require a slight modification on it. You have to install a switchboard, which basically tells the PS1 to say, okay, I'm gonna read from the parallel port. And remember, this mod only works with PS1s that have the parallel port. So there's a certain, I think it's like SCP-8 7000 series that don't have the parallel port.
7,000 and up, yeah.
So that works like a flashcard of sorts, so like, you could really play anything on it.
And you,
Yeah.
you leave the optical drive in still?
And you still
Yeah,
leave the
you still
optical
leave
drive,
optical.
Well, that's nice.
which is like a nice thing, because this kind of mod is like, okay, you still have your original games, you can still play...
Oh,
Here we go
dogs
again.
want to be in the podcast.
Alright, we'll let the dogs out. Anyway, that flashcard will allow you to play, as far as I'm concerned, a lot of games. There's only like maybe a handful now that doesn't work.
Yeah.
The big one was Viv Ribbon, which is like kind of strange considering what that game is.
Yeah.
It's too bad because that's actually a fun game.
It is a fun game, but it's doing something with that hardware that the flash drive just doesn't know what to do with.
Doesn't want to do it.
It's got to do with the audio, I bet.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I know things like, speaking about, I guess, the PlayStation with PSIO, the Game Gear, I think they have like the McWill mods, and they have like consoleization mods.
Yeah,
and stuff like
GBA
that,
consoleizers and stuff like
yeah,
that.
or some of the mods get kind of funny where they're turning like a handheld console into like a console, like a home console instead. Like you're putting like video out on a console to then play it on your TV, but it's a handheld game.
It's kind of funny, and especially with the Game Boy player existing.
Yeah,
you
I
kind
mean,
of
you already
wonder.
have things like that that are already kind of accomplishing that. It seems like some of the mods like that seem kind of weird to me. Like, well, why would you do that? Like,
Well, the Switch is either a handheld console or hooked up to your TV.
I guess.
maybe that's it. People just want to have.
And then you
their
got,
Game Gear Switch.
PSP had component cables.
which is
Yeah.
like, that's also interesting, but that's not exactly a mod, it's a feature.
Yeah, it's a feature. But they also have PSTV, which is essentially just it was Vita, not PSP. But
I know, but PSTV, that's a topic we can talk about a little later though.
PSTV is. Oh yeah. So I mean, there's kind of I guess kind of just a broad overview of some of the console mods that are out there, kind of what they're really trying to accomplish. Like, I think with any console, there's always going to be some kind of mods to accomplish something or another. Most of it's like upgrading your video, upgrading your sound, just making it run nicer, or just giving you like EverDrives or like your optical drive emulators to just be able to play those games straight off SD cards, stuff like that. Like, that's almost like, I mean, mod chips were a thing that was kind of like,
Yeah, I think some of this
original Xbox
crosses
era.
over into the game, preservation arena as well.
yeah,
Because-
well, it gives you more options to play your games when your media is all dead.
Yes.
Well, I mean, are they going to burn new CDs that you could play these games on? Probably not. Like, I mean, they're just going to have the ROMs available for you to download and put on something that emulates it and then play it, and that's kind of the way you're playing.
And if they do, it may come through limited run games, which some of them are very cost prohibitive for some people.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you kind of pose a question on whether or not that, is it up to your moral code that if a game that you can't really get any copy otherwise,
Yeah,
you kind of
well,
wonder,
I mean, it's kind of that, like, I guess the ethics of it, like a game that doesn't exist anymore. Like, because they just did, I have no mouth and I must scream.
Oh yeah.
They just did like a really small run of. They did like 100 copies or something of that.
Oh wow.
But it's kind of that weird. Like, they're monetizing preservation in a sense, because it's like, well, here's those old games you used to play. You can't get it anymore, but here's a new copy of it.
For
But
$200.
obviously they're making money off the game, so it's not like they're doing
Right.
it for free. They're not like, here's the game for free, you just download it and you just burn it yourself. I mean, obviously it costs them money to put these things onto media, distribute it, and blah 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 blah. Still, you kind of question the ethics of, like, well, I mean, they're monetizing preservation in a sense, because they're making money. They're a company.
Well, it's kind of weird because if you take Streets of Rage 4, it's physical for PS4, but it's digital or limited run games for Xbox One/Series X.
Yeah. It's kind of weird, but.
it is a weird thing, really. You really gotta wonder about the ethics of, like, okay, if I want to preserve this game, I want to be playing this in like 20 years or something.
Yeah.
Is this the only way I'm ever gonna get the game? And I can't get it any other way.
Yeah. Anyway, that's kind of just, like I said, just kind of a short topic talking about, retro modding, what you can do to your old consoles to make it a little bit better.
All
Yeah.
right,
So
I guess we can wrap this
wrap
up
it up
then.
with that. All right.
All right. Thanks for listening.
Please,
Please.
like, comment, subscribe to Retzone.ca, and we'll catch you next time.
See you in the next
later.
video.